Trying to get rid of that shadow. Good morning. Hello. Welcome to the Wellness Agents. Thriving in a changing world, and there's always more to learn, is what we're about. I'm Karen.
I'm Sarah, and today we thought we'd have a discussion around the concept of grieving. Grieving as in the challenging times we've come through in the last few years, grieving loss of friendships, of privileges, of access to things, all sorts of aspects of grieving. So we thought we'd just open that up for discussion and see what comes up, because it's very multifaceted, this grieving. And I know I've felt and continue to feel a sense of grief over friendships that were lost over the whole COVID era.
Division.
Yeah, that division, that sense of, separation, and the line down the middle of, there's those that are on that side and those that are on this side. That's been really hard. I think we haven't perhaps expected that sort of manipulation to come in, I suppose you could say, almost.
That external manipulation that was just so, like when a story is told, and it is a story, when it's told often enough and then the opposing view is blocked, then we're susceptible to going, oh, well, that must be truth. And it, like everybody's truth is actually different. But that lack of regard that someone might have a different opinion. And I mean, I'm just as guilty in that I was very strong on my stance, and it probably came on too strong for some. But, with a background of being a registered nurse, and the charter to the registered nurse, or any nurse and midwife, is to be the patient's advocate. So I took that really strongly. Like, that was my code of practice.
Yeah.
Doctors do no harm, nurses, patient's advocate. And that had me having, strong discussions with medical teams, etc., when the patient was saying, no, I don't want it. Or I don't want it now. I don't like, now is not right. And the sense of urgency that might be very real for getting things done, but that the patient has the right to go, no, I don't.
Yeah, I think it's a shame.
It's all that grief that, I mean, I have broad enough shoulders and I'm bold enough, that confident enough, or maybe I have been accused of being blunt. That was quite kind, because I've been called worse. But, but that grief around, I didn't like, I was disregarded for the fact that I had over 30 years nursing behind me, had qualifications that made me quite, in my opinion, being quite valid as a version of as a story. But the disregard, and then the fallout from that is most of my friendships I didn't lose, but they've changed in a way it's lost some of its depth.
Yes. And there's a grief around that, isn't there? There's a grief around the aspect of things change, and friendships are a hard one when there's depth and the depth lost, because it's never going to be the same again. So therefore, there is a sense of loss around that. So you don't have to lose the friendship, but you probably, in a way, you have lost a big aspect of it.
Have lost what it was.
We're
talking friendships of decades.
Yeah.
And so the strong friendships lasted. I'm still in contact with them and can have a good laugh and catch up. um, and the ones that were maybe meant to change
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but also the grief for losing not an industry, although it is an industry, but a profession that I was passionate for.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now just kind of the idea of ever being nursing again is just like, yeah, that ain't going to happen.
So where does that sit within you then?
Well, I reckon I've gone through the classic old stages of grief of where it was that denial, then anger, then, all that. I've accepted it, and I can still say it was an industry, it was a profession that I was really, really happy to be able to call myself.
Yeah.
I know that my advocacy changed people's lives. I know that I have two boys' life I saved,
Mm.
me and
Mm.
my own, like I was in a nursing post,
Mm.
remote Australia, and my actions saved their life. That's something that can sit beautifully in my heart, but also where and I experience absolute bottom level grief of how much harm some of my
Mm.
nursing practice that I did to guidelines.
Mm.
I did what we thought was,
Yeah.
and were
Yeah.
taught
Yeah.
was a good thing, but I don't know my contribution to assisting women become infertile and the
Mm.
number of children and maybe adults I've harmed through
Yeah.
programs that are now mandated,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's it's an interesting process, but the most important thing for me was that I have surrounded myself with people that can help me in energy work
Yeah. Yeah.
and recognize, oh my God, I'm suffering here. I
Mm.
need help. I can't do
Mm.
this on my own. And
I think that's the big thing. And then getting that support network. And we all need it. And that's the other thing. We're not meant to do these things alone. We're not meant to, experience all these feelings alone. It's like you need to recognize them within your own self when they come up. But then it's about sharing them without any shame about that, because we're not meant to be this closed unit that deals with it all ourselves. We are meant to be interconnected with others. And I think that's another thing that we've lost is some of those connections and that whole sense of community. There is a very big divide there. So it's finding your network or like-minded people. But also I'm finding now in the space that we're in now, in the time frame, is that letting go of judgment, letting go of it doesn't matter what side of the fence you might have been on, whether you did or you did not. It's like, now can we move forward as a whole? Because we actually need to come back for that healing to bring everybody into a space of being accepted, regardless of what step they took. And that's
decisions they
hard.
made.
And that's hard. So it's like
Yeah.
finding that compassion. And how do you do that? It's like feeling all the feelings, feeling all those stages of grief that you mentioned, Karen, that being allowed to recognize and feel and then being able to sit and just keep yourself balanced. It comes back to that real important self-care, doesn't it? That using the
It
tools that use
does.
to support you.
I know my biggest hurdle was forgiving myself for being, I don't know if gullible's the right word. It was just not even having an aspect of questioning that what I've been taught. Like I've got postgrad science qualifications and I don't know what they're worth now.
Yes. Yeah. You're living
Um,
into uncharted territory, I think, in every aspect of our life, not just health, but in every aspect of our life.
yeah, yeah. And I do think that the two areas that I still am doing work on is my self-judgment, but also I judge my colleagues that I used to call friends. I mean, it's not that I hate them now, but we just, the way of the world, I don't cross paths with them anymore.
Mm, mm,
Um, that were very judgmental on me, and also pushing an agenda that they didn't stop and think about. And I know I've still got that as a hurdle for even health professionals that I don't even know, whether they be pharmacists, medicos, or nursing staff that were doing the injections, seeing the negative fallout. There's no doubt there were times they would have witnessed the negative fallout, but still able to go, well, I've got to pay my mortgage.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like
And
building the capacity within our own hearts, I think, as hard as it is, to hold them in a space of
and that
acceptance.
strength of judgment I have for that, I know there's a mountain of work ahead of me for just being able to see them as another human that was making a decision at the time. And they could have been quite fervently believing that they were doing the right thing, that's where I've got to get to.
Yeah.
I've got to tell you, Sarah, it was something that I had heard of in the past, but it was reintroduced to me last week. And I'm doing a real focus on it at the moment. And I can't pronounce it. It's the Hawaiian prayer that
Ho'oponopono, that thing. That one.
That one. It's got lots of O's in it. And very easily Googleable, because you just have to go HO''O, and you'll get your options there.
Yeah.
And so I've been practicing that in English form, of course. And like I did a sound session. My daughter runs fortnightly sound sessions in Margaret River, and we drove down for that last night. And my whole practice during the 45 minutes of receiving this beautiful sound was, I'm sorry. I am sorry.
Give you. Yeah.
And that, and I please forgive me.
Yeah.
And I love you.
Yes. Yeah.
And I just did that. I just went through the register in my head for both people close in my life, of which, of course, you're in there, but also for the people that I had significant change of relationship with.
Yeah, it's powerful practice, that is.
Yeah. And it was really, I felt it. And I mean, you're feeling the sound anyway. So you're getting that beautiful energy, just her bowls, I mean, the sounds, they just go through you. And, but also enhancing it with just bringing so much love into it.
Yeah.
Like really feeling those words, not just saying them, but really feeling them.
And it comes back to that heart coherence, doesn't it? That we, there is a lot of research that's been around for a long time, that if we can evoke that gratitude, loving kindness in the heart, that sort of dispels everything else. It's almost like check in with your heart. It's like part of that practice of how have you shown up for the day. You might notice how you feel in your physical form, what's being reflected in your physical form, and then noticing, well, how's my heart feeling today? And checking in and just even spending a few moments, putting your hand on it and breathing in and really going and just checking. It's a bit like that concept.
But what you can do is that, it just came to me while you were talking that way, in that, yes, really feel what's going on. So you got your hands at your heart, but bring in an energy that can make you feel a bit flatter and feel that, and then bring the energy again, and actually then really feel that difference. That you're bringing in that love. So understanding that everything's carrying a frequency, and so
and that's
like
what builds that's what builds resilience, is being able to hold those two polarities of the grief and the love, or the grief and the self-love, or the forgiveness, as well as the hate's a strong word, but we might have felt that towards people. Can you hold that feeling of hate, and then can you hold the feeling of love, or can you hold the feeling of forgiveness? That is what builds what they call that heart resilience, where your heart's there as a vehicle to hold all of that. It has the capacity to hold all those emotions, and the love is abundantly available to transmute all those emotions. And then when you've allowed yourself to feel them at the depth, it's almost like you have to feel it at the depth so deep that it is really painful, but that's when you get the best healing, and that's when your heart can hold more. Then it's like you're building that resilience of your heart to hold more of these emotions that, there's going to be a lot more to come. We're going to help each other rise above what we're going through in this world, and come out to a brighter, more collaborative, unified space. Then it's about holding all of those, building that resilience. That's the trick, isn't it? It's like giving yourself permission and finding the support to do that. What helps you do that? Get in tune with what you need.
And it's surrounding yourself with people that are going to look at, it's not the false glass half full, over optimistic rainbows, unicorns, and that sort of stuff, but with people with the capacity to hear something negative, but to be able to go, well, at least if they're doing that, it shows that they're now starting to think. It's not enough, but, like seeing it as progress, or else demonstrating, well, actually, I don't think I'm going to put myself in that space anymore because it's too negative for me. I come out of it feeling trashy.
Yeah.
But I mean, Cryon was saying forever that love is the answer.
Love is the answer. It's renowned. It's ancient, isn't it? There's so many of those sayings that have been around forever that, love is the answer, and project that out, and you can't really come to too much grief. As long as you've got the support around you, it's like building that resilience and knowing that you've got a support around you. So,
and when you feel that you don't have that support, that's where there's work to be done, because you'll probably find there's 2 or 3 people who absolutely tick the criteria for that, but you don't like their message. So what is it that's blocking you from even receiving? Because for a long time, and still particularly, well, I think it still jars, that when I might say to people, I don't know how many children I've harmed, if not killed, through my doing the nursing practice that I was paid to do. And I mean, that's a really strong statement. And I'm not saying that I recognise that I'm going to now make myself vulnerable to be taken to court. It's just that, but in my heart, I don't know that. That it's a fact. And so then people will come back and say, yeah, but you didn't know at the time, and so, that's okay. And I go, yeah, but the information was available to me if I'd chosen to go looking. And again, that's where that judgment comes in, that any of my nursing colleagues that know me, once I started, and I did get mouthy about it, once I started sprouting off, none of them were curious about it.
That's the word. And I think that's owning that you weren't curious then because of the, you're probably busy stage of life and you were, flat out with other things. But now that you've got that curiosity and knowledge, sharing it and inviting others, well, how about we question a bit more? I think that's the big takeaway from what we've been through is, let's get a bit curious. Let's not accept everything that's put in front of us. What about if you can start to challenge or think, or just be curious about it? So, oh, well, that's interesting. And maybe look up if you're not sure. Do a little bit of research. It's not hard to do anymore.
No.
You can start to open your mind and just question. Where does that sit? And also the benefit of sort of that awareness of how am I showing up in the world physically, pranically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And then whatever feedback you get, being open and curious to the feedback, because we're amazing beings. Our physical body mind complex feeds back to us all the time. So if something lands in you, there'll be some form of feeling of either unease, discomfort, total ease, total resonance. It's like if you stop long enough and just ask the question, oh, where did that land in me? Oh yeah, that feels like it. Yeah, that's landed in a place. I think that's sitting well with me, or that feels like it's landed in that truth place within me. We need to hone that skill of intuition and self responsibility for the information that comes in, so that we can react from a place of having spent some time of discernment, I suppose, discernment, and having given the time to feel it, sense it, where does it land, as opposed to just being too much in our head and running on the programs that we've been programmed to run on.
Yeah.
Really important.
Because one very close friend who had an opposing view to the whole program to me, and I kind of raised that I don't understand why you're not even curious about what I'm saying. And it was a group setting that we were talking in, and these are really old friends, and they're in my heart regardless, sort of thing. And she actually came back with, "You overwhelm me, Karen." And I was really grateful for being told that, because then that says, "Karen, put the brakes on a bit, go shift down a gear."
Yeah.
It didn't eventuate into her exploring anything more. But one of the most jarring things I can hear is a nurse saying, "Don't tell me, because I've got to keep my job." So they're actually choosing their house over, or that's a big, and I know it's a big statement. And also I'm in a situation where I didn't have to face those choices, because my kids are old enough and gone, like we're at the other end of our working career, my husband and I. But it's like, oh, so the most important thing for you is that dollar value coming in. Are you really saying that you've got no other choices? Because these are women that are heading towards the end of their working careers too. It's like I really feel for the graduate nurses, because they just spent 3 years at uni, and what are their options, sort of thing, other than to then throw in all their studies. But I would feel like the sun came up and we had blue skies, which we don't today, sort of thing, if all I heard was, "Well, you were onto something, Karen. I don't get it. I don't know how you knew from the start." But I mean, there's enough disclosure now that they should be aware that and they just said, "Wow, didn't see it. Couldn't even see it when you were saying it."
No.
That recognition would be just amazing. I don't think I'm going to get it, but it's like, and that's part of that grief, is that I have to settle for second best because there's subjects we can't go to.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's hard. There's grief about loss of freedom of speech, loss of being able to say what we, freedom. It's that value of freedom.
Yeah.
So yeah, it hits in many ways, does it? Grief. It can be all those things. It can be all of what we've experienced in the last few years. I suppose our invitation to you is to, hopefully this discussion has, evoked some curiosity that you can dig in and see, well, where am I holding on? What am I holding on to? Because at the end of the day, we don't really want to hold on to it. And can we express it? Can we feel it? Can we journal it? Can we go out and walk on the beach, or get our bare feet on the ground, or just move the body, whatever ways of releasing and expressing, because we don't want to hold on to it, but evoking that love in the heart and that heart coherence by coming to your heart, evoking some memory that brings in that loving feeling, and then sitting with that and just doing some nice deep breath work that might be enough. That's a nice little tool just to help transmute so that we can hold more within these beautiful, resilient hearts that we have, because they will hold it if we can feel it.
I think it's acknowledging too that maybe things aren't as smooth as what they could be. You know, that's bringing it to the consciousness. Okay, I'm feeling really uncomfortable here. What is it that's making, oh, yeah, I can't really say what I want to say because I'm going to upset them.
Yeah.
You know, like, and because you don't deliberately want to, I never make it my aim to deliberately upset someone. But it's like, I often do.
So hopefully we've given you some food for thought, and please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, put any comments below because we'd love to hear, or, you know, what you're thinking about this topic and whether that's evoked anything in you that could be valuable for others to hear too. So wellness agents, acknowledging that there's always more to learn, remain curious, and we will see you again in a month's time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.